Hello, and welcome back. Thank you so much for listening today. My name is Deb Sherritt, and this is my podcast, What I Find Funny, where I share with you an experience that's either made me laugh out loud or made me think, that was funny. On this episode, the smells you endure in your workplace is the hot topic. And I realize that may not appeal, but bear with me. It's a good story, or at the very least, a lesson learned. I'll start by saying I work in a scent-free environment. There's signs everywhere that say so, and the reason is there are many of those among us that are negatively affected by scents. Migraines, asthma attacks, and a rash that covers the body from head to toe are just some of the effects from a strong scent that can be experienced. So, for that reason, the department I work in, Occupational Health and Safety, adheres to this policy very strictly. Even the small bottle of dish detergent in our kitchenette is completely scent-free. I've worked in many different areas of the hospital over my 22 years there, and I've experienced encounters where the perfume lingered long after the person left the room. And I don't mean that in a good way. An aroma that can choke you, especially if you're on an elevator with them. I'm happy to say that, for the most part, the offending person is a visitor and not an employee who should know better. I find perfume to be the most overwhelming scent, and I've become a complete non-scenter at home. I don't wash or bathe in any scent whatsoever, and mainly because after years of not being exposed to heady scents, I find them to be too much. Even a slightly scented hair conditioner could literally upset my stomach, and God forbid I go somewhere where they use air fresheners. I'm noping out of there within minutes. However, the scent-free policy doesn't seem to apply to other smells. I won't go in depth, but suffice it to say that there are far greater and nastier smells one can be exposed to that will assail the olfactory senses, and these are very common in a hospital setting. I have been on all sides, as an employee, a visitor of a patient, and a patient myself, and I'll say this, hospital employees are the best of the best. I once worked with a male coworker who, if he passed gas in his office, would come out of his office and shut the door and say loudly, "Code Brown." We all knew what that meant, and we all knew to keep a healthy distance between him and his office until the all clear was given. There is, of course, one last class of smells we haven't discussed, and that is lunch smells. I can honestly say that these smells can either be very enticing or some of the worst smells I've ever smelled. Many's the coworker who has unpacked tuna, salmon, eggs, and all sorts of pickled, pungent portions that permeate our office area. Normally, the lunch smell dissipates fairly quickly, and we carry on with our workday. So imagine my surprise when I returned from my lunch break one day and caught a whiff of something I immediately didn't like. Whatever it was had already broken through the protective barrier of the fire doors to greet anyone coming into our area. I walked into our hallway and was completely assaulted by a stench so strong it nearly knocked me backwards. How is this possible? We don't work in a clinical area. We don't work in a waste area. And yet all I could smell was, well, frankly, acrid, rotten eggs and stinky cheese wrapped around a really bad bathroom call, if you get my drift. Our hallway has 2 sets of fire doors, and they were unable to keep the odor completely within the hallway our safety offices are contained in. It was thick, truly almost tangible. I felt as though I was chewing it before I hit my office door, and it only followed me in. When I entered my office area, I asked my coworker, "What's that smell?" She took one look at the sight of my face and broke out laughing. Obviously, it wasn't something I liked, and that tickled her funny bone to no end. She was no help in finding the origin of the smell. She was too busy laughing at me. I walked back out into the hallway asking, "What's that smell?" Sniffing like a trained sniffer dog at an airport passenger lineup. I was on the trail of finding the smell's origin when around the corner comes my coworker. I'll call her Ginger, holding a container. As the space between us got smaller, the smell became much more pungent, and I knew straight away whatever it was Ginger was holding was the source of the stench. Before I could say anything, Ginger looked at me apologetically. "It's cauliflower that I left in the container overnight since yesterday. I forgot about it. I haven't had it in the fridge or anything. I don't think it's okay to eat anymore." I kid you not. This smell could have cleared out the entire floor. I couldn't believe that Ginger was able to stand holding the container right underneath her own sniffer without gagging or holding her breath. Any minute I figured she'd start to sway and crash to the ground, out cold, overcome by the stench. "You don't think it's okay to eat?" "You think?" I asked with incredulity. The stench alone would put a starving man off. How was she enduring this stinky smell and not have it affect her? By this time, the fireproof doors had completely been breached, and some of our corridor mates were starting to come into the hallway because of the smell. That's how potent it was. I was surprised that the container Ginger was holding wasn't melting. But what was even more impressive was Ginger's iron-strong intestinal fortitude. While she was calm, cool, and collected, I began gagging and heaving with bursts of laughter in between. Thankfully, we were able to open windows and doors to get the smell out, but the memory still lingers months later. It's one of those kind of smells that you can't control, co-workers' lunches. Most of the time, those smells are quite lovely. But every once in a while, you get a stink bomb thrown down your hallway that clears the place out. The best part came when Ginger asked her office mate, a quiet, reserved kind of guy who spoke softly and rarely, why he didn't complain about the smell. And he answered her, straight-faced, with, "I just thought you were having a bad day." And that's what I find funny. I appreciate your support so much, and I'm grateful you stopped by. This podcast can be found on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Player FM, Samsung Podcast app, Podchaser, and Boomplay. Come back again and check out other What I Find Funny episodes. Also, check out the links to photos related to some of the episodes at the bottom of the What I Find Funny website. If you like what you hear, let us know with a tap on the like button and maybe a comment. Make sure to subscribe so that you're notified of my latest episode, and always try to find funny where you can, and take care.